Torrential rain pounds South Korea's capital, causing closures of roads and parks and power outages. The country braces for more rain until next week. In a summit with the Polish president in Warsaw, President Yoon agrees on South Korean-Polish partnership in rebuilding Ukraine, as well as expanding cooperation on supply chains, nuclear power plants, and defense. South Korea slaps fresh sanctions on North Korea in response to its recent ICBM launch. The UN Security Council convenes an emergency meeting, but once again, there's been no tangible response. Good afternoon. We start with the monsoon rain sweeping across South Korea. The capital region is among the hardest hit, with heavy downpours overnight, causing roads and parks to close while thousands of homes lost power. The country is bracing for more rain in the coming days. Our Ishi, who has been tracking the latest developments. Shiu, how's it looking over there?
Kyungin, I'm standing on the highway crossing over the Jamsu Bridge that's in central Seoul. And as you can see behind me, the bridge has been completely submerged by the rain that's pounding over South Korea. And the streets and benches along the river are also underwater. Now, it's drizzling out here right now, but in some regions of Seoul and the surrounding area, some 50 millimeters of rain per hour fell last night. This led to the closure of 4 major roads, including one on Jamsu Bridge. Now, access to 27 streams in the city, as well as some parts of the Hangang River Park, are also restricted as of today. There was also a power outage in some 2,000 home apartment complex in Seodaemungu district in western Seoul. Many people living in basements have evacuated for safety reasons. Now, landslide warnings have been issued in some parts of Seoul, as well as in the cities of Cheongju, Ansan, and Kimje. A woman in her 60s reported missing in Busan Tuesday is still unfortunately missing.
All right, then how long are we expecting the rain to continue?
Right, Kyungin, the rain is expected to continue until midweek next week. And it's just the rain, it's not just the rain that we should watch out for, but also the lightning and the wind that we should also be cautious about. In fact, the Interior Ministry elevated its warning level to severe since last night. The Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters also upped its response level from level 2 to 3. Authorities suggest that people stay out of at-risk areas such as basements and places likely to be affected by landslides. People should also stay away from streams and along shores where flooding is likely. Doors and windows in buildings should remain closed. It's also advised that people stay away from construction sites as strong winds may push materials around. And last but not least, watch out for real-time weather updates on broadcast and online. Kyungin.
All right, thank you, Xiu, for the reporting. Stay safe there. Now, South Korea will be teaming up with Poland in rebuilding Ukraine to restore roads, buildings, and other infrastructure damaged in the war-torn nation. This was agreed between South Korean President Yoon and his Polish counterpart during their summit in Warsaw. Our top office correspondent Oh Soo-young has the details.
South Korea has established a three-way system with Ukraine to support its post-war reconstruction efforts with Poland, with Seoul pushing for some $52 billion worth of projects through public and private initiatives. That's according to President Yoon's senior economic secretary, after the South Korean leader and his Polish counterpart held a summit on Thursday where they agreed to ramp up joint efforts for Ukraine's infrastructural development. Choi Sang-mok told reporters that Ukraine made a request to the South Korean government in May to provide some $20 billion worth of recovery support in over 5,000 projects. Seoul is currently working to provide governmental assistance through construction pilot projects to restore vital facilities such as schools, housing and hospitals. The government also estimates around $32 billion of potential private sector deals are in the works, particularly in building small modular nuclear power plants, with 6 MOUs among corporate entities, including Hyundai Engineering and Tusan Enerbility. Korean firms are also looking to develop airport and railway facilities, along with smart cities in Ukraine, to go beyond simply restoring infrastructure to upgrading them with advanced urban systems.
South Korea hopes to utilize its technology and own developmental experience that achieved the miracle of the Han River for Ukraine's reconstruction. From the second half of this year, we'll start formulating a smart city master plan for Kyiv and Uman.
In order to facilitate such recovery projects, Chair said that South Korea will offer institutional support, having effectively set up a cooperation system with Poland and Ukraine to develop and promote recovery projects through various intergovernmental agreements. Seoul will also open a Warsaw-based office to promote rapid information exchange and cooperation between public and private sectors and offer customized support for firms. It also looks to provide greater financial support through official development assistance and development loans, shortening the implementation process and seeking joint financing with international bodies such as the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. While Russia's invasion is still ongoing, the Yoon administration says that Seoul will continue to make meticulous preparations for Ukraine's post-war future, something that President Volodymyr Zelensky has called a common task for the entire democratic world. 오수영, Arirang News, Warsaw.
Also during their summit, the leaders of South Korea and Poland agreed to build on the current economic exchanges, namely in supply chains, nuclear power plants, and the defense industry. Our presidential office correspondent Kim Do-yeon has the details.
As South Korea and Poland are stepping up cooperation based on shared values, the two agreed to expand their economic exchanges, penning MOUs on trade and infrastructure cooperation. One was the Trade and Investment Promotion Framework, designed to create a trade and investment framework to advance cooperation in various industries, business activities, and supply chains, as South Korean firms expand into Poland's high-tech industries such as electric vehicle batteries and 5G.
오늘 양국 간 채택된 무역 투자 촉진 프레임워크는 교육 투자 확대뿐만 아니라 산업 공급망 등 포괄적 협력을 촉진하기 위한 것으로 양국 경제 협력의 외연 확대에 새로운 모멘텀을 제공할 것으로 기대합니다.
The two leaders also agreed to advance bilateral cooperation in strategic areas including nuclear power plants and the defense industry, as the top office says that seemed to be the focus of the Polish side as well in these bilateral talks. In fact, South Korea has been exporting K2 tanks, howitzers, and fighter jets to Poland recently, and President Duda showed his wishes to build on this.
We wish to not only import South Korean weapons, but also manufacture them here in Poland. K2 tanks are one of the examples.
An MOU was signed to advance infrastructure projects with a focus on the transport sector not only in Poland, but across Central and Eastern Europe. This includes construction of airports and communication infrastructure in the region. The top office showed its confidence for these plans.
Strengthening economic security cooperation between Korea and Poland will be a focal point for complementing our existing European supply chain network. The TIPF signed at this summit, and the MOU for transportation infrastructure development cooperation will serve as a catalyst for this.
The two leaders also agreed to double down on countering North Korea's threat to global peace and security, criticizing the North's missile program, including the most recent launch just a couple of days ago, and calling for an end to its nuclear program.
또한 북한 정권이 북한 주민의 인권과 생존권을 도외시한 채 핵 미사일 개발을 지속적으로 하고 있는 점을 규탄하였습니다. 우리는 북한 불법 노동자 파견과 사이버 활동을 차단하면서 북한 인권 상황 개선을 위한 공동 노력을 배가해 나아가기로 했습니다.
Following the summit, the Polish president hosted an official dinner at the presidential palace with around 80 guests. According to the top office, the two celebrated a successful year of bilateral trade despite the global economic hurdles and pledged to cooperate to safeguard the values of liberal democracy. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
And during his last day in Poland on Friday, President Yoon is looking to branch out Seoul and Warsaw's trade ties through a series of business events. That includes a business forum involving 89 corporate leaders from South Korea and some 160 from Poland, where they're expected to sign 30 MOUs on areas including nuclear power, energy, and infrastructure. The president will hold a separate conference with companies likely to be involved in rebuilding Ukraine to discuss challenges and possible government support. He will then have lunch with local Korean business leaders. Lastly, the president will speak at Warsaw University, followed by a Q&A session with students. South Korea has slapped fresh sanctions on North Korea in response to its recent ICBM launch. The provocation also prompted a UN Security Council meeting, but that once again ended with no tangible outcome. Our Choi Min-jung reports.
The South Korean government has made clear that North Korea's provocations will inevitably come at a price. In response to Pyongyang's launch of a Hwasong-18 ICBM this week, the Foreign Ministry on Friday slapped sanctions on 4 individuals and 3 institutions involved in the regime's nuclear and missile development. This is the 10th round of sanctions put in place against the North since the beginning of the Yoon administration. The 4 individuals on the blacklist are former and current high-level North Korean officials, including the director of the General Political Bureau of the North Korean Army. They were involved in the development and financing of nuclear and missile programs and engaged in commercial activities that violate UN Security Council sanctions. North Korea's latest missile launch has also prompted the UN Security Council to convene an emergency meeting. However, members of the UNSC failed to hold North Korea accountable for its recent missile launch due to China and Russia's opposition. Speaking at the meeting for the first time in over 5 years, North Korea's envoy to the UN defended the latest ICBM test, saying it had no negative effect on the security of its neighbors.
Our test fire of a new type of ICBM, Hwasong-18, is a warranted exercise of the right to self-defense, to deter dangerous military moves of hostile forces, and safeguard security of our state and peace in the region.
Pyongyang's envoy also slammed South Korea and the U.S., arguing that strengthening deterrence between the two countries is a threatening act and heightens the risk of nuclear war. Meanwhile, the U.S. also demonstrated its ironclad commitment to reinforcing extended deterrence in South Korea by conducting combined air drills with Seoul over the Korean peninsula on Thursday. Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff explained that South Korea and the U.S. enhanced their ability to conduct combined operations by swiftly deploying Washington's extended deterrence asset. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
South Korea continues to see a downturn in its economy, mainly due to the sluggish manufacturing sector. The Finance Ministry's Economic Green Book released on Friday shows that production in the manufacturing sector dropped 7.5% in May compared to the previous year. This is the 6th consecutive month that the report said that there has been slowdown in the economy. Exports, however, are showing signs of improvement, recording the smallest drop so far this year in June. The World Health Organization has classified the popular sweetener aspartame as possibly carcinogenic, but will still allow its use at its current recommendation level. 2 WHO agencies, the International Agency for Research on Cancer and the Joint Expert Committee on Food Additives, conducted independent but complementary reviews, while both bodies cited limited evidence. The first agency classified aspartame as possibly carcinogenic to humans, while the other agency concluded that the acceptable daily intake should remain at 0 to 40 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. Aspartame is an artificial chemical sweetener widely used in food and beverage products since the 1980s, from diet drinks to sweet snacks and even some toothpaste and medicine. As Japan is gearing up to initiate its planned release of wastewater from its destroyed Fukushima nuclear power plant, the European Union has agreed to remove its restrictions on Fukushima food imports, citing latest assessment by the IAEA. Lee Seung-jae reports.
The European Union on Thursday announced it would lift restrictions on food imports from Fukushima and any Japanese import restrictions imposed after the 2011 Fukushima nuclear accident.
On our side, the European Union side, we agreed to lift the remaining restrictive import measures that were linked to the Fukushima accident. We have taken this decision based on science and based on the proof of evidence and based on the assessment of the International Atomic Energy Agency.
While the European Commission says that the restriction had been fully lifted, it called on Japan to continue to monitor for radioactivity and publish its findings. Since an earthquake and tsunami wrecked the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant in 2011, the EU had required pre-export testing of food products for radioactivity. And since 2021, it had required certificates showing levels of radioactive isotopes in a number of agricultural and fisheries goods from the area. With the latest lifting of restrictions, the EU hopes that Japan will also ease restrictions on EU farm produce, as European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said both sides had also agreed to work on removing Japanese trade barriers to EU beef, fruit, and vegetables. In response, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida welcomed the latest EU announcement, saying the lifting of the restriction will help drive forward the reconstruction of the devastated areas, adding that Japan would also make a judgment on EU farm produce restrictions based on science, as the EU had done in lifting its restrictions. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
This year's world champion for making the best Neapolitan pizza is a South Korean chef. The win made headlines in Italy, as this was the first time that a South Korean has won this top honor. Our Kim Jung-sil reports.
Meet this year's king of pizza, Chef Yoo Jun-hwan. He has been named as the best Neapolitan pizza maker in the world in the annual Trofeo Caputo World Championship held in Italy. More than 500 pizza makers from 22 countries competed for the highest honor this year, and to everyone's surprise, Chef Yoo claimed the victory. The news made headlines in Italy, with its local media reporting the king of pizza comes from Korea.
But did you know that you would win?
I didn't, because there were more talented chefs that are from Italy, so I just came home before the announcement and later found out that I won.
But how? What was so special about his pizza that moved the judges in Italy?
I felt that the masters in Italy want to inherit its unique culture of making Neapolitan pizza, so I stuck with the traditional method while trying to make it tastier.
Yoo's pizza follows the traditional recipe: a basic dough, tomato sauce, fresh mozzarella cheese, and basil leaves. His restaurant in Goyang, Gyeonggi-do Province was already a local's favorite, but ever since the win, there isn't an empty seat.
We waited for 2 or 2.5 hours to get a table. I would wait 5 to 6 hours because it was the best pizza I've ever tasted.
Pizza just melted in my mouth. The dough tastes so good. The cheese too. It was worth the wait.
Mainly self-taught through cookbooks and YouTube videos, he's been making pizzas for just over a decade.
Out of all the things that you could have pursued, why Neapolitan pizza?
I went on a backpacking trip to Italy when I was young, and when I tasted the pizza, it tasted so good. It was made with simple ingredients, but the taste captured me. That's when I fell in love.
Even after the win, Yoo says he has a firm belief that the head chef must always stay in the kitchen.
I'm gonna continue making pizzas as I do every single day. I just hope that my pizza tastes the best in the world. If someone says that to me, I would be so happy.
A pizza master who respects the values of Italian tradition hopes to spread the beauty of Neapolitan pizza to his customers. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
Artworks by disabled artists from South Korea and Canada are on display on the southern island of Jeju, as this year marks 60 years of diplomatic ties between the two nations. A famous Korean artist with Down syndrome known as Pixel Kim is among the participants. Our Shinai Alfazi's report from Jeju.
Vivid colors covering the whole canvas, and on top of that are some shimmering unknown formulas. This work can be seen at an exhibition called Intense Difference of Its Own at Jeju's International Convention Center. It's part of the mathematical drawing series by Kim Yeon-woo, also known as Pixel Kim, a Korean pixel artist with Down syndrome. He is famous for having a drawing displayed at the Yongsan Presidential Office. For Kim, pixels serve as his own unique units of memories.
대규모로 백의 재료 주제를 가지고 네모난 재료 그리는 퍼포먼스하고 있습니다.
Kim's pixel art beginnings go back to his school days when he would draw lines which he turned into squares. Then he wrote down the names of his friends in the squares and imagined interacting with them. In math class, Kim used to scribble down unrecognizable math formulas and graphs. That early work is reflected in his canvases these days. He draws whenever he gets inspired, as if he's writing a diary. Certain pieces drew inspiration from trips to Canada, where he participated in exhibitions and artist residency programs. Kim has been consistently engaging in exchanges with Canada since 2019. Meanwhile, the exhibition, which focuses on the value of artistic difference in the context of disabilities, does not only display Kim's work, but also features the work of the late Won Lee, a world-renowned Korean-Canadian sculptor who lived with the effect of polio. Visitors can also enjoy paintings by Canadian artists Brian Ennis and Michelle Benny.
It's important to determine how South Korea and Canada should progress together. We should establish the goals that both are aiming for, as well as the values regarding expression and diversity. The exhibition is a perfect example of that.
Celebrating 60 years of diplomatic ties between South Korea and Canada, the exhibition will run until July 23rd, bringing together artists with disabilities from both countries. 신하영, 아리랑 뉴스, 제주.
Good afternoon. The downpours that lashed across the central regions have moved down south, and until Sunday, we will be seeing 20 to 80 millimeters an hour of rain hammering down across Korea. Chungcheongdo and Jeollabuk-do provinces need to brace for downpours tomorrow, with up to 300 millimeters in the forecast. Meanwhile, Jeollanam-do province could see more than 200 millimeters, and Seoul could see up to 100 millimeters more rainfall. The rain advisory in the capital has been lifted, but most of the south will be under heavy rain alerts throughout the day. Meanwhile, a strong wind advisory is also in place along coastlines in Jeju Island, with the landslide crisis alert at its highest across Korea. Well, parts of Jeju Island are still under a heat wave advisory, and some parts started out the day at 29 degrees this morning. The rest of the country is seeing highs that are similar to yesterday. And please do expect to see monsoon rain into the middle of next week. Stay alert and safe. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend.